On today's episode of the franchise, August 15th, we're going to take a look at the AFC East. I'm going to give out my predictions for each of these teams and take a look at them heading into the 2023 NFL season. We're also going to take a look at the college football AP Top 25 preseason rankings. Not giving out my preseason rankings yet. Those will be soon, but we will discuss the AP poll and their rankings. Before we get into the episode, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, watch or listen to the podcast there. Also follow the Instagram, Twitter, TikTok for additional content. Starting here with the college football top 25 preseason rankings. Last year, the top 25 rankings that the AP poll did were horrible in terms of preseason. Transitioning to the end of the year, where the teams were that were ranked in the preseason and how they ended up at the end. A lot of the teams ranked in the beginning of the year did not find their way at the end of the year in the final rankings. Starting though, Georgia is ranked the number one team in college football, and it's no surprise there. Two-time defending back-to-back national champions. However, this team did lose some pieces. They lost Jalen Carter. They lost Nolan Smith on the defensive side, and they were losing Stetson Bennett, who won them those two titles each of the last two seasons at the quarterback position. This team, though, is still going to be a great team. Kirby Smart is the head coach. They have recruited at the top of the SEC over the last few years. I mean, this most recent recruiting class is still one of the best in the country. The question is going to be quarterback Carson Beck, who I believe is a senior, getting his first full-time. This is his first full-time as a starter of this Georgia team. He could have replaced Stetson Bennett at times last season. There was talk of that, but this is his full-time. This is his gig. This is his starting job, and we'll see how he does. But the thing for Georgia is they play absolutely nobody. They play Tennessee. They play South Carolina. I know they play Florida. But they don't play enough schools that are really going to scare anybody. I mean, when you look at their schedule and the teams that they play throughout the year, they are going to go undefeated. I mean, Tennessee game is going to be a tough game. Tennessee is a very good opponent. I think Tennessee is going to be a very, very good team this season. South Carolina could always be a fight. They are a very nice school. I think they're going to have a very good season with Spencer Rattler at the quarterback position. But the rest of their schedule is filled with absolutely nobodies. They open up the season with an easy start, and they really don't play any tough competition until that South Carolina game in week 3. Open up at UT Martin, Ball State, and they play UAB. Auburn is not going to be a good team. Kentucky, Vandy, easy wins. Florida could be tough. Ole Miss, they're ranked at number 22. We'll get to them later. Tennessee. But this entire schedule that Georgia has this season is going to be an easy schedule, and they're going to have a tremendous team. On the defensive side, they're returning 70% of the starters from last season. And Brock Bowers at tight end, the best tight end in all of college football, a guy who's going to be probably a top 15 pick in the 2024 NFL draft, headlining that offense. So Carson Beck has a number one guy to go to in Brock Bowers at the tight end position, who's going to dominate in the SEC. And this is a Georgia school. Like I said, they play absolutely nobody, but they have the recruiting class, the transfers, and the head coach and Kirby Smart to be one of the premier teams in college football this season. Number 2, Michigan. This is some people's number 1. An AP 2 writers voted Michigan as the number 1 team in the country, and for good reason. This team is returning tons of talent. Blake Corum in the backfield. JJ McCarthy comes back. This is a team with a good defense, as well as very nice receivers as well. And their schedule, it is tougher. It is a lot tougher than Georgia's. You're already looking at 2 ranked opponents. Penn State and Ohio State, both schools are going to be in it till the end. I also think Nebraska could be a tough one, bringing in Matt Rule, former Panthers head coach, to rebuild that program. Michigan State, Purdue, You never know what could happen in any of those games. But look, Michigan is going to be a tremendous team this season. JJ McCarthy, I think he's going to take a big leap. I think he's really going to shine this season. He's been great since he took over the starting position at quarterback. I think this year, his junior year, he is going to drastically improve and be one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Blake Corum out there in the backfield with Donovan Edwards, easily the best running back duo in all of college football. And like I said, they have very nice receiving depth and a great defense to go along with Jim Harbaugh, the head coach. This is a Michigan team that should be in the playoff. They should be in the college football playoff at the end of the year, unless they lose to Ohio State. But even then, if they just lose one game to Ohio State at the end of the year, they will most likely get into the postseason. Now, if they lose to Penn State and then they lose to Ohio State, the season is over. But there's really no way where this team isn't in the playoffs unless they lose 2 games this season before we start the playoff. Ohio State, they have it 3. They lost C.J. Stroud, which is a big loss. But they have Marvin Harrison Jr., the best wide receiver in college football history, arguably. This guy is incredible. Can the defense turn it around? What will the offense look like under a new quarterback? I still think this team is going to be very good. Once again, they don't play anybody this season. They play Michigan, who they lost to last season. Very, very tough opponent. But this one's going to be on the road. All right. Last year, they had the luxury of being at home, and they lost. Now they're going to Michigan, but they also play Notre Dame, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Michigan. They got 4 currently ranked opponents. Notre Dame's going to be a tough one. Penn State, Wisconsin. Ohio State has the toughest schedule out of these 3 teams so far listed in the top 3. I still don't think they'll have any problem this season. Bama is at 4. This is the lowest they've been to open up a season, I think, under Nick Saban. And Alabama's getting doubted. And I think this is an Alabama team that's really going to shock this season. Yes, they lost Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr. They lost a lot of guys on both sides of the ball. They lost their starting quarterback and their anchor on the defensive side of the ball, but they recruit well. They have Nick Saban as the head coach. They have tons of quarterbacks currently on the roster to choose from, the transfer from Notre Dame, as well as the 2 that were on roster last season. I think Alabama is going to be in the playoff this season. I think they're going to be in it till the end. They are being doubted heavily, and rightfully so. I mean, they missed the playoff last season. Arguably, they should have made it. You can make the argument that Alabama should have been in the college football playoff last season. Bryce Young single-handedly carried them in certain games against Texas, for one, against LSU. But they have a decently tough schedule this season. Texas in week 2, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Tennessee, and LSU, all their ranked opponents so far this season. It's definitely possible that they lose a few games. They could lose the Texas game against Quinn Ewers and that Texas offense, and they could definitely lose against LSU late in the season in November against that team with Jaden Daniels, Brian Kelly entering his second year as the head coach of that LSU team. I think Alabama is going to be there at the end. Speaking of LSU, they are ranked number 5. I'm going to go through the rest here. USC is at 6. The biggest question for USC this season is going to be, is the defense going to improve? Is the defense going to be improved enough to keep them in games? Because the offense is going to be there with Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, and the plethora of offensive weapons and the great offensive line that USC has. But the questions are all about the defense. How are they going to stop the opponent from scoring? Because the problem for them last season was the defense kept the opponent in these games. USC's offense would put teams away, but the defense would allow them to come right back. And then obviously, are they going to be able to overcome Utah? You lost 2 games to Utah last season. Can you get over the hump and beat them this season? Penn State at 7, Florida State at 8, Clemson at 9, Washington at 10, Texas at 11. I think Texas is going to be very, very good with Quinn Ewers at quarterback, Arch Manning right behind him. Tennessee at number 12. They should be very, very good. Again, this season, Joe Milton at the full-time starting quarterback. Notre Dame at 13, Utah at 14, Oregon 15, Kansas State 16, TCU 17, Oregon State 18, Wisconsin 19, Oklahoma 20. I don't think Oklahoma is going to be that good again this season. They were bad last year. I think they're going to continue to struggle in 2023. UNC is at 21, 22 Mississippi, 23 Texas A&M, 24 Tulane, and number 25 Iowa. I'm going to do my top 10 before the start of the college football season in a few weeks. Got to dig here, figure out how to rank these schools, and obviously get some information on them. But let's move on here to the AFC East preview. Last episode, we did the NFC East, went through each of these teams, discussed what they did in the offseason, how I think they're going to do in 2023. AFC East here today. This is going to be a division. I think this is a division that could potentially have 3 playoff teams, and who knows, what this other team could do. They've been great for a long time. They have one of the best head coaches in football. But this AFC East division is going to be a tough division. You have 3 teams, 3 premier teams with talented offenses, great players on defense. I think each one of these teams is very, very well coached. But starting here with the New York Jets, the team that's made the most noise this offseason, the team that is on Hard Knocks, the team that acquired Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, to go along with acquiring Adrian Amos, Randall Cobb, McCole Hardman, Quentin Jefferson, Allen Lazard, and obviously Aaron Rodgers. Looking at last season, they had one of the best defensive units in the NFL, led by head coach Robert Saleh, a defensive-minded head coach. They were 4th in yards allowed a game last season, 3rd in passing yards, 16th in rushing yards, and allowed the 4th fewest points in the NFL last season. This defense was tremendous. The offense, though, was not. They were 25th in yards per game, 15th in passing, 26th in rushing, and they were 29th in points per game last season with the 23rd ranked offensive line entering this season. However, this offense is going to improve dramatically. They have acquired Aaron Rodgers. I mean, last season they were running out Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, and Mike White as their starting quarterbacks last season. Your offense is going to struggle when you have a mix of those 3 guys as your starting quarterback throughout the season. But Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, coming here to this team in the offseason, going to be here for this year and most likely next year. And he's bringing along tons of talent. Allen Lazard comes over, Randall Cobb, McCole Hardman. They just signed Dalvin Cook to pair with Breece Hall in the backfield. Corey Davis is also there at receiver. And this is an offensive line ranked 23rd. Elijah Vera Tucker, Connor McGovern, Mekhi Becton, all very good pieces on that offensive line for the Jets. And their defense is the star of this team. It is really the best area that this team has. Sauce Gardner, defensive rookie of the year last season. Quincy Williams, CJ Mosley, Jordan Whitehead, Adrian Amos. This defense is going to be tremendous this season. They have a Super Bowl caliber defense. They had it last season, and what they missed was an offense. And adding Aaron Rodgers, this team is going to be incredible in 2023. They do play some tough opponents. I mean, in their division alone, the Bills, Dolphins, and even the Patriots are going to be a tough opponent this season. Not to mention they played Dallas, Kansas City, the Eagles, Chargers, and even the Cleveland Browns, I think, are going to be a very tough opponent this season. Now, with all of those tough games, you already have 6 in-division games that I could say you already are going to be 50-50 games. Not adding on the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Chargers, and the Browns. That's 5 games right there that are added on to your 6 in-division games that are going to already be tough. This Jets team has a very difficult schedule this season. I mean, the first 2 games of the season, opening night against the Bills, second game against the Cowboys. I still think the Jets are going to be a great team. I think they're going to win the division and make the postseason. I see them going 13-4 this season. I see them losing to the Bills. I think they probably lose on opening night. I think they beat the Cowboys week 2. But the Chiefs, the Eagles, a game against the Dolphins, probably in Miami, even the Patriots could give them a loss. Those are going to be where the tough games come from. I think they can handle the Chargers and the Browns, but the Eagles and the Chiefs are going to be 2 of their toughest opponents this season, along with the Bills, along with the Dolphins, and along with the New England Patriots. This team, though, it has tons of hype around it. Tons and tons of hype around this team with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, the defense that they had last season, and all of the talent they brought in this offseason. Dalvin Cook, Alan Lazard, Corey Davis, McCole Hardman, all of those guys on this team. Brees Hall returning from injury, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, who by the end of the year, adding Aaron Rodgers, I think Garrett Wilson will be in the top 10 wide receiver discussion at the end of the year. But all of the hype surrounding this team is very, very possible that they disappoint, that they miss the playoffs, that they are not as good as we are hyping them up to be. I mean, it could definitely happen where this team has too much hype, too much pressure on them, and they fold and they fumble under all the pressure, and they are the same old Jets, and they miss out on the postseason. But adding Aaron Rodgers and all of these pieces and how well coached they are by Robert Saleh, I don't see this team crumbling. I think they go 13-4, win the AFC East in 2023. Next team is the Buffalo Bills. I have them going 12-5 this season, finishing second place in the AFC East. They made some nice additions. I think the best addition they made was their first-round draft pick, Dalton Kincaid, out of Utah at tight end. They needed to add a weapon this offseason for Josh Allen, whether as a receiver or in this case, a tight end, and Dalton Kincaid, who plays like a receiver coming out of Utah. I think that was a great addition for this team. They did lose some guys, Tremaine Edmonds, Roger Saffold, Cole Beasley, Devin Singletary, lost those guys over the offseason, but this is still a team that is one of the premier teams in the AFC, led by Josh Allen at quarterback, who last season was going under a lot of scrutiny for his turnovers, for his carelessness with the football, and obviously the playoff loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. But look, Josh Allen is still a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. You can honestly make the argument he's number 2 over a guy like Joe Burrow. Josh Allen is still the quarterback of this team. They are still going to be amazing. They still have Stephon Diggs, bringing back Gabe Davis, James Cook, Damian Harris, Latavius Murray, all those guys in the backfield. The running game is going to be a question. It's been a question for the Bills for years now. Even when they had Devin Singletary, their running game was pretty much non-existent. But they're going to have an elite passing game with Diggs, Davis, Khalil Shakir, Dawson Knox, and adding Dalton Kincaid over the offseason. And the Bills' defense is amazing as well. They were 6th in yards allowed, 15th in passing yards allowed, and 5th in rushing yards allowed. And they allowed the second fewest points in the NFL last season. Ed Oliver, Von Millard, Leonard Floyd, Matt Milano, Damar Hamlin, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Those are the anchors of this defense, and they're going to be an amazing unit. Now, look, when Von Miller got hurt last season for this Bills team, that's really when their struggles started to happen for this team. When Von Miller went out, they started to struggle on the defensive side of the ball. But he's coming back healthy this season. I know he's pretty old, but he's coming back healthy this season, and he's going to be the vocal leader of this defense, and they're going to be a premier defense. This offense and this defense, this entire Bills team is going to be great. I don't think anyone's doubting how great this Bills team is going to be. I mean, their offense was amazing last season, 2nd in yards per game, 7th in passing, 7th in rushing, and they scored the 2nd most points per game in the NFL, only behind the Kansas City Chiefs. They do play some tough opponents as well. The Jets, Dolphins, and Patriots, they play those teams 2 times a year each. They also play the Chiefs and the Eagles and the Bengals, Jaguars, and Chargers. They arguably have the toughest schedule of any team in this division. Jaguars, Bengals, Eagles, Chiefs. Those are 4 games right there that you could say they could lose those games. They could lose against the Chiefs. They could lose against the Bengals and the Eagles. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars upset and beat this Bills teams with Trevor Lawrence coming into his 3rd year in the NFL after what he showed last season in the playoffs and down the stretch. He's going to drastically improve. But this Bills team, I think they go 12-5. I think they probably split with the Jets. They could split with the Dolphins, and they're either going to lose against the Chiefs, the Bengals, or the Eagles, maybe even to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But they handle the Chargers, they handle the Patriots, and they handle every other team that they play this season. The Bills will be in it till the end. I wouldn't be surprised if they win a Super Bowl this season. They are that good of a team. led by Josh Allen at the quarterback position. The Dolphins are the next team. I think they go 9-8 this season. This is a team that made the postseason last year, but the biggest question mark on this team is going to be Tua and his health. 3 concussions for Tua last season. He contemplated retirement over the offseason. If he suffers another concussion or another injury, he suffered a few injuries last season besides the concussions. If Tua goes down with other injuries or more concussions, this team really starts to have big question marks on offense. They brought in Mike White from the Jets, who was good for the Jets last season, but he's not a game-changing quarterback. Looking at the rest of the offense, the running game is going to be pretty much non-existent. They were 24th, or they were 27th in 25th in rushing yards per game last season. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Myles Gaskin as the running backs. They have the best, or the second best, a top 2, top 3 wide receiver duo in the NFL with Hill and Waddle. Cedric Wilson Jr., Braxton Berrios came over in the offseason. And then they have an offensive line that is ranked 20th in the NFL. They brought over Jalen Ramsey in the offseason. Vic Fangio is the new defensive coordinator to go with Bradley Chubb, Xavier Howard, Eli Apple. They just brought over Christian Wilkins. This team, just looking at the offense, they have potential to be a great offense. They were a great offense last season, 6th in yards, 5th in passing yards, 11th in points per game. When Tua played, they were 8-0 when he was healthy as a starter. Hill is going to probably lead the NFL in receiving. Jalen Waddle, I know he's injured, but with those two on the field, the speed and the quickness that they have on the outside, they're going to be a hard wide receiver duo to stop. And as long as Tua is healthy, they could be a good team. But I think the defense is lacking. They don't have a running game, and their offensive line is not that good. And they play a lot of tough opponents. Obviously, the 6 in-division games against the Bills, Patriots, and Jets. But the Chargers, Eagles, Cowboys, Chiefs, and Ravens are all tough games, and I don't think they win any of those games. I don't think they beat the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Ravens, or the Chargers. Not to mention they probably split with the Bills. They could split with the Jets, and yeah, they could probably sweep the Patriots. But losing those 5 games, those 5 games against the Eagles, Cowboys, Chiefs, Ravens, and Chargers, which I see happening. There's no way this team makes the postseason in a stacked AFC from top to bottom. Pretty much, I think they go 9-8, miss out on the postseason. They need to address the defense. They need to get stronger on the defense. Now, I know Vic Fangio, very great defensive mind. He's going to improve this defense. But I don't think they have enough talent, enough personnel on this defense to really carry them, to help carry the load that the offense is going to bring. The offense is going to be tremendous, but I don't think the defense is going to be able to hold the weight of this offense. And I think they go 9-8 and miss out on the postseason. And the last team in this division, New England Patriots. They just brought over Ezekiel Elliott, who was released obviously by the Cowboys in the offseason, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Gesicki. They drafted Christian Gonzalez in the first round of the NFL draft. The offense for the Patriots last season was horrible. 26th in yards, 20th in passing, 24th in rushing, 17th in points per game last season. Mac Jones had a very disappointing second year in the NFL, 2,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions with a quarterback rating of a 36.1. There's already been talk. Who is going to be the starter for New England? Is it Bailey Zappi? Is it Mac Jones? Malik Cunningham has been shining in preseason. I think Mac Jones is going to be the starter. I don't think there's any question there, but this could be Mac Jones's last chance to be the starter in New England. And I think it really is going to be his last opportunity because I don't think this team is going to be any good this season. Now, look, they have a tremendous defense, 8th in yards allowed, 16th in passing, 6th in rushing, 11th in points allowed last season. Yes, they have Bill Belichick as the head coach, but this is a a very poor skill position group. Ramondre Stevenson had a great season last year, but you already look, they've been trying to bring in a running back all offseason. They bring in Ezekiel Elliott to split the load, probably be a third down back, but Ramondre Stevenson, yeah, he's going to get involved in the passing game and in the running game, but will he be used as much this season as he was last year when he kind of came out of nowhere and broke out? Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, and Kendrick Bourne as your three wide receivers is one of the worst wide receiver groups in the NFL. Juju is not a number one receiver. He was not last year in Kansas City. Devontae Parker hasn't been good for years. And Kendrick Bourne is a nice number three or a nice depth piece, but he's going to be one of the guys that Mac Jones relies on this season. Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki. How will those guys fare? They have a great offensive line. Their offensive line ranked 13th in the NFL. They have the best offensive line in this division. It's going to be hard to get after Mac Jones, but these other defenses in this division, the Dolphins with Bradley Chubb and Wilkins as their pass rush, the Jets pass rush, the Bills pass rush, they're going to get after the quarterback. Mac Jones is going to have tons of pressure on him this season, not only on the field, but off the field and in the media. But this defense is going to be great. Christian Gonzalez, Kyle Duggar, Matthew Judon, Jabril Peppers. He's on this team now. I didn't even know that. This is a great defense led by Bill Belichick. I think they go 5-12 this season. They're going to have a very, very tough time. Now, luckily for them, they don't play the Chiefs, but they do play the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Saints, Steelers, Chargers, Bills twice, Jets twice, Dolphins twice. I think they lose to the Eagles, Cowboys, Saints, Steelers, Chargers. They probably lose both games to the Bills, both games to the Jets. They could lose both games to the Dolphins. Now, obviously, they'd split some of those games in division games. Very tough, especially against a Patriots team coached by Bill Belichick, who is a great mind and a great coach and knows how to beat these teams in his division. But at the end of the day, this offense does not have enough talent for Mac Jones to throw the football to, and yet alone, Mac Jones is not a great quarterback. I think this is going to be a Patriots team that at the end of the year is going to be fighting for a Caleb Williams, a Drake May, Michael Penix. One of these quarterbacks that's coming out of the draft is where the Patriots will be looking going forward. This is Mac Jones's probably his final year in New England, unless he goes on an MVP tear and this team wins the division and makes the postseason, which I just don't see happening with their schedule. I don't see them beating a Dallas, a New Orleans, the Steelers, the Chargers, the Eagles. I don't see them beating any of those teams this season with the lack of talent on that offense, in the skill position, in the receivers, in the tight ends, in the running back room for Mac Jones, and let alone Mac Jones is not a talented quarterback. All right, that is going to do it for this episode. AFC East preview this season. I have the Jets going 13-4, winning the division. The Bills going 12-5, finishing in second, also making the postseason. I have the Dolphins going 9-8, missing out on the playoffs, and the Patriots finishing 5-12 this season. That's going to do it for the episode. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. Like, share, comment, subscribe. We'll be back with another episode, another division preview, college football, more baseball. James Harden. We'll be back. Another episode coming later. See you guys